like sisters, big mamas. They've encouraged me. I guess that's where I got a lot of my strength with God and dealing with them and them. They encouraging me, you know, that they will be there for me, and they has been there for me. They said that they will go out and search. They went to Sumter County, and they talked to the sheriff's office. They talked to the deputies. They walked the areas, but they encouraged me that I didn't have to always go. That they would be there to go for me. It eased some of my crying. It really has. Through God, it really has. Knowing that I had other family support there to help me. If all I had to do was pick up the phone up, they were calling me. I hadn't heard from you all day. You doing okay? I said, girl, yeah, I'm doing fine because I know that y'all got my back. So it makes a difference knowing that you got people that you hadn't known them all your life, but they come in your life and they seem to love you. It says, like the scripture says, they got my back, and it reminds me of what God said. You know, love ye one another as I love you. They didn't know me, but they love me. They care about me. They care about my going through. They're compassionate, and I thank God for that. But I know through it all, in due season, if I continue trusting God, that God gonna open up a way, that He'll soften somebody's heart, that they'll tell what happened that night, or where he is. Because I believe he's still alive. I really do. Until otherwise, that's why I'm keeping my hope.
I have a national internet radio show that I do in conjunction with the PR company that I'm associated with. Primarily, this is my avocation, but it's my passion due to the fact that my father was murdered by a career criminal back in 1981, almost 34 years ago next month. Absolutely rewarding experience. There's such caring, compassion, there's such community, and as soon as you are here, whether you are a victim of a crime, a family experiencing a missing person, or you're here as a service provider, I think you immediately get recruited for whatever, whether it's by Monica herself or you just feel like you have to become involved. There's that magnetic pull and the sense that they are here to meet a need that no one else does. Once I was here last year, I was so impressed, and over the course of a year and doing extensive writing that I do on my website as well as my radio show, I've come to know a lot of these people as colleagues and friends. So they are almost like a surrogate family to me. And I felt the importance of doing that, and I think I will probably come every year. I think the thing that people need to know is that it is for everyone. Not only people who are suffering loss with violent crime or someone who is missing, but if you are in any of the helping professions, if you know of someone that has been missing, if a family member, a loved one, a neighbor, whatever, you will learn a tremendous amount. But you are surrounded by a loving community. I mean, this conference is all about seeing old friends and hugs, and it's like a reunion coming back. And again, this is only my second year, but again, I've worked at creating that network, and you just want to help and you want to support, and that's the beauty of it. And Monica gets so much accomplished. Many of the things they do virtually are through donations, but oh my God, if there was a big benefactor that they could have, they could accomplish so much more.
I think it's just that bond that you develop with these people. And I don't have a missing person in my family, or I don't have an unsolved case or anything, but it was just interesting to try to help these families out. And when you come to the Q conference, you see that bond between families, and it really lifts everybody up. Just that support mechanism is very healing, I think, for the families, and even for outsiders like myself, to just see that working, and you see people just lift each other up. I think Monica is Monica, and it's great to see her in action, and I think it goes back to what I just said about her caring. You don't get that level of care even sometimes on the ground level with your local law enforcement agency or whatever, or sometimes even with the family. But with the Q Center and Monica and what she's been able to accomplish and really give the care for these cases, I think really goes a long way in solving them. A lot what you'll hear at the conference here is there's still hope. And I think that's the number one message, that Monica kind of gives you that hope because somebody is reaching out their hand and saying, how can I help?
I'm a doctor who does functional integrative medicine, and I do understand the effect of stress on development of cancer. And a lot of the victims of abuse and the first responders, they are under a tremendous amount of stress. And the purpose that I have for this conference is to help them understand how. Number one, understand that the stress causes most of the diseases, from cancer to diabetes to obesity to stroke. All these diseases are really triggered by stresses. So I want them to understand that first, and understand to recognize stresses and to give them some tips on how to minimize the stress.
The Q conference is very important to the state because it represents the state of North Carolina, for one, and we're very proud of the Q and the organization and the fact that they are from North Carolina. But the biggest part about it is it gives the family such hope. This is the first conference that I've had a chance to attend. I've always sent a welcome letter or sent something to represent the state, but to actually be here and hear the stories and go through the training, out of all the trainings that I go to nationally, this training has really concentrated on the victim and the victim family. And I can honestly say that it's one of the first that has just really concentrated on that point of a missing person. You know, as a missing person specialist, I deal with all stages of it, but for a conference to just concentrate on the victim and the victim's family, you get a whole different perspective of it. I think that's what it's all about. So if you're a victim or you're a family member or just a friend of someone who's missing, and you're the one or on the team that's helping keep hope alive for that person, this is the place to be. I mean, because here, that's all they share, that's what they talk about, is the hope. And you get to hear about recoveries, you get to hear about locates. So this is a great place to be for victims' families.
Just every time I say it, I just can't say thank you for giving my son back.
We were at the accident site when the car was underwater, so they were having to wait for divers to go down and get it. And we were sitting there on the side of the road when a law enforcement officer, and I don't know who he was, I don't know what division he was with, but he came up to Monica and he said, we would have never looked there, we would have never found them. And I respected him so much for that, because for law enforcement to admit that they need help and to acknowledge that somebody else helped them, law enforcement is stretched to the max. They have so many things they're doing, but when you are in the thralls of something like that, you can't think like that. You can't, nothing is as important as finding your child. So, for him to have said that, it meant a lot to us, and I try and tell all the law enforcement that I see the story so that they know that, it meant a lot to us too. So we know that we would not be sitting here today knowing where our son is if it was not for Q.
Oh wow, you can't measure it. I mean, they've always responded when we've needed them to. It's not like we have to wait a great deal of time for them to respond. They're usually they're on the spot, and their reputation is just precedes them. Everybody knows that's one of the first groups that we're going to call if we have an extended search. The first thing that struck me when I got here, I walked in and signed up at the table, and I went to the very first display, and as soon as I got there, it was a young man that was abducted some time ago, and a relative of his came up and began to tell me their story. And again, coming from the domestic violence world, I understand that victims have to tell their story. But I didn't realize how therapeutic it was for them to tell their story until this one person came up. And it has been a series of, she told her story and she had a smile on her face when she told her story. I could tell that it was doing her a service. That really just kind of struck home with me about how important it is for them to have to tell their story.
No, I've been with Q a number of years now, in either breakout lectures or featured speakers as of this morning. They're an organization that the first time I met them, it says somebody, we need to help support those when they were in infancy stage, just getting growing. So we need to help support and lend anything that we can to these people. In the years prior to that of doing search and recovery, we were working for the case itself. And it was at the first conference I went to speaking that I got to deal with families and learned that the reason that we do this is not for me, not for the case, it's for the heart of the family that's missing the person. And if you don't produce that end result, you can close the case, but the heart will never heal. And that made sense to me, and that's the way we operate now. We're going to do everything we can so that that family's heart can get healed.